State of Emergency is a third-person action game that was developed by VIS Entertainment, published by Rockstar Games and released on the PS2 and Xbox in February of 2002. It was actually a budget title and was considered a commercial success despite its wildly mixed reviews, selling over 700,000 copies on the PS2 alone. This is surprising because, as you would expect, a game where you fire an automatic weapon into a crowd of civilians caused just as much controversy as you would expect back in those days. State of Emergency is set in the year 2035 and establishes a world that was rocked by an economic crisis roughly a decade ago, and due to the weakened government, the American trade organization known as the Corporation builds their own military and establishes a police state. In response to this, an underground resistance force that goes by the oh-so-original name of Freedom begins fighting back against the powers that be, causing all sorts of havoc to disrupt their operations. And at this point, the Corporation declares a state of emergency. That's really as far as the narrative goes, to be honest, and all of this is explained in a 60-second intro video before you're simply thrusted into the arcade-style carnage. So what is State of Emergency? Well, the sugar-coated answer is that it's a third-person shooter/brawler set in multiple open areas in which you're tasked with causing as much chaos as possible. The honest answer is that it's a game so shallow it may as well be a glorified tech demo. There are two modes to choose from, Revolution and Chaos mode. In Revolution mode you work your way through a number of short tasks such as kill this guy, blow this up, or protect this person. Chaos mode, on the other hand, is essentially an arcade mode in which you're given 3 minutes to get the highest score possible and is possibly your best option, as it's much less frustrating than trying to complete missions in Revolution mode. As you run around one of the 4 open areas that feature in the game, you'll be able to throw punches and kicks and pick up melee weapons, along with a variety of guns and explosives. The combat is basic, repetitive and clunky, and while this would be fine in a 2D beat-em-up that could be finished in less than an hour, when it's a game that could take up to 4 to 6 hours, it starts to wear thin very quickly. If you're using melee attacks, fights become a case of just mashing buttons until everyone is down, and when using the guns, your best strategy is to create some distance and just strafe while you get rid of the limited ammo. Now, what I'm not saying is that simple combat and blowing things up can't be fun, but in order to enjoy all of it, you have to make the player care about progression, and that is where this title fails. Each mission begins with you wandering over to a gang member, hitting the X button, receiving a couple of sentences of text ordering you to kill someone or blow something up, and then you repeat that process until the game is done, running in circles and seeing every inch of the environments multiple times. I suppose they wanted to cram all of these missions in to make it feel like more of a full game, but it just ends up dragging on for hours, leaving you bored and frustrated. For me, State of Emergency's presentation is the real shame. The world that it takes place in had an opportunity to create a wacky game with a ridiculous story and funny characters. Sadly, the amount of cutscenes within the game can be counted on one hand, and there is next to no voice acting at all, which does make things feel a little bit lifeless. As far as the rest of the game goes, the graphics are actually okay. Most characters have a slightly exaggerated cartoon look about them. Environments are detailed as much as they need to be for saying they're all going to be blown up anyway, but overall, State of Emergency looks appropriate for its time. What is sort of impressive is the sheer number of characters on screen at one time. The crowds are definitely a bonus, and although you can run straight through them like they're all ghosts, seeing everyone scramble around does add a lot to the chaos on the screen. It almost makes me think that the developer wanted to create a game around this crowd tech to test it out before it was used in a much more polished game with a bigger budget. Generic techno/dance music is the backing track to your Resistance, and you'd be better off tuning it out. I also found that sound effects are quite inconsistent. The grunts and groans of main characters and enemies are fine, but there are some real drops in quality for some of the weapon sounds, and sections of the voice work sound like they're being played through a phone. I don't think there is much more I can say about this game. While it was a budget title at the time and can be bought for practically nothing today, I don't quite know who I'd recommend this to, or if I can recommend it at all. There is an incredibly niche group of people that may remember this game as fondly as I did when I played it 16 years ago, and for those people you might get a couple of hours of nostalgic fun out of it, but to expect anything more would be setting yourself up for a fall. Yes, it is fun to mow down crowds, and yes, it is fun to blow up buildings, but State of Emergency feels like half of a game that unfortunately isn't worth seeking out or investing your time into.
Would the owner of a VIS Entertainment like to play AWN69?